What's up guys, Eduardo here, and today's video is a video tutorial on the LSit. If you're unfamiliar with the LSit, it's a really cool core exercise where you balance on an elevated surface and you hover your feet off of the floor, creating an L shape, therefore known as the LSit. Now it doesn't have to be on an elevated surface, you can do it on the floor just like this and pop up, and that's the LSit. Now the movement itself is really cool because it'll develop a very strong core, but it can also be used as a building block to really cool skills like the Straddle Press Handstand and the Manat. So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to set up the LSit so that it transfers over to those harder variations. We're going to cover the exercises that will help you get stronger so that you can progress more and more into the full LSit. And then we're going to cover the prep work and the necessary components that you need for the LSit, like hamstring flexibility. So let's get started.
So before starting any kind of activity, you want to make sure that you have a good warm-up so that you can increase the range of motion for the joints necessary and the muscles necessary. You also want to be prepared and increase your body temperature, stimulate the muscles necessary for the skill at hand. Now, so you can start off with your wrists, because the LSit is a lot of hand balancing, and depending on the apparatus that you're using will require some either wrist flexion or extension. And then you can move on to other things like hip work and hamstring work, lying active leg raises where you keep both legs straight, toes flexed towards your face and dorsiflexion, and then you can start to move around in circles going one way and then the other way, just to make sure that you have nice and open hips. If you've practiced the LSit before, you know that you might experience some hip or quad cramping. And if you don't, try it out and don't be surprised if that happens. Moving up next, we have scapular control, and in the LSit, we want to work on retracting the shoulder blades. Not an excessive amount, but getting the scapula warmed up and the muscles around that is really good to focus on in your prep work. So keeping your arms straight, your butt tight, squeeze your shoulder blades, and then pull them apart. Now on to the LSit. You're going to step in between two elevated surfaces and you're going to roll your shoulders backwards, pull your ears away from your shoulders, turn your elbow pits forward, and then come up and balance on the top of your toes by lifting your knees. And from here, you're just going to hold. Make sure you keep that posture. And when you feel good, you're going to lift your knees up as high as you can and hold that position without losing either the arm straight, the shrug, making sure that you have this anti-shrug motion. And then gradually just start to extend the legs. Lock the knees, point the toes, and make sure you're breathing throughout this entire movement. Now, if you miss one of these cues, it might look something like this, and this is technically an LSit. But if you're trying to improve your core strength and you're trying to make the LSit translate to other skills and activities, make sure that you have all of these steps down. Elbow pits are forward, roll your shoulders backwards, open chest, and then lift the knees and extend the legs.
So as you can see, no progressions needed. All you have to do is learn how to posture up, being able to push your ears away from your shoulders, your elbow pits are facing forward, and then gradually start to lift the knees higher and higher as you get stronger and more comfortable with the movement. Then you can start to slowly extend the legs without compromising your form, and that itself is going to build a lot of tricep strength, core strength, and hip flexor strength to transfer over to those other skills. So what other exercises can you do to improve the LSit and make you stronger and a little bit quicker to progress to the legs fully extended? Well, I wouldn't necessarily separate it as progressions leading up to the LSit. It's going to be more on developing the basics, because let's face it, the LSit is a basic movement. Although it is really tough, especially if you're a beginner, it is a basic movement and one building block into those harder skills. So you want to look at it as mastering a full, well-rounded area for the basics: push-ups, pull-ups, and squats. Those three movements cover all bases, not just in the LSit, but in a wide range of skills and activities. And that's what you want to be able to cover, is developing a very good foundation so that you can learn other skills and activities much easier and safer, because you'll be symmetrical and well-rounded. So here are 3 examples that you can do to progress your push-up, pull-up, and squat.
Starting with a push-up, you're going to start on your knees, but you're going to finish with a rounded back. This is called scapular protraction, and it's going to help you translate the movement to a lot of body weight skills. And to make the push-up harder, you just keep leaning further and further forward, and this can be infinite, called a forward lean push-up. Make sure that your glutes are tight the entire time, and you finish with the rounded back so that you can work that scapular strength. Up next is a squat, and you're just going to work on mobility to start off with. Once you can reach the bottom of the squat and you can hold it comfortably, start adding movement into the squat by going up and down into that deep lower level squat. Then you can start adding a little bit of weight to it lightly and then gradually go a little bit heavier over time. And finally, we have the pull up where you're just going to work on negatives, just holding that top position. And if that's all you do, that's all you can do. Slowly start to extend the elbow as you get stronger, and then amounting to about 3 negatives of 10-second lowers is going to amount to 1 body weight pull up. And then when you can get several body weight pull ups, you can start to add a little bit of weight and then gradually progress your weight just like you did in your squat. For mobility work, specifically for the LSit, you're going to work on the back scale. You're going to balance on one leg and make sure the back leg is pointed and both legs are straight the entire time. Arms are out to the side for balance, but also to practice squeezing your shoulder blades together. Then lift the back leg as high as you can without bending the front knee. You'll do the same thing in front, which is called the front scale. You're going to point the front toe, keep the leg straight, and this is going to be a quad and hip flexor strengthening exercise. Up next is the table bridge, and you're going to start seated with your fingers pointing behind you, and you're going to roll your shoulders backwards, lift your hips, squeeze your butt, squeeze your abs at the top, and briefly pause 1 to 2 seconds. This is to help you open up your chest and work on chest flexibility so that your shoulders don't roll forwards in the LSit.
Just to recap, you want to be nice and warm before any practice session, so you want to make sure that you get a good mobility warm-up. If you need an example, I have one down in my feed, so check that out. It's called the 10-minute mobility warm-up. But if you want to follow the examples here, just make sure that you have nice flexible wrists, that they're warmed up. Hip flexors, abdominals, hamstrings are all nice and loose. Now, to get started with the progressions into the LSit, really it's just all about posture and making sure you're doing it with perfect form. So set up your chairs, your parallettes, the floor, whatever you're using, and get comfortable rolling the shoulders backwards, opening up your chest, elbow pits forward, and then you can hold it in this seated position. And even if you don't have anything, for example, if you don't have chairs, you could also just do it on the floor like I just did it. To build the strength to lift yourself up and extend the legs, work on the basics. The basics, I cannot tell you enough how important all of that is. Pushing, pulling, and squatting are gonna roll over everything else. So just make sure that you have those covered before attempting very advanced things. Finally, make sure that you have the preparation and the mobility to do the LSit. If your hamstrings are really tight, it's going to be impossible to straighten out your legs fully because your hamstrings are fighting you to close. So make sure you have the hamstring flexibility to straighten that out with the mobility drills that we went over. If you enjoyed watching that video, please hit the like button, subscribe, and if you have any questions or concerns, definitely feel free to reach out to me. I am accepting clients both in person and online, so if you need a little bit more one-on-one guidance, let me know. Do all the things, share it, like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.